Hey, I'm Jerry.
Hey, I'm Aaron. And this is Retro Rehab.
Welcome back to Retro Rehab, the greatest collaboration of all time. Today, we are really excited to say that we have our very first guest on Retro Rehab, and it is none other than the legendary Vimm of Vimms Lair. That's right, Vimm himself of Vimms Lair. Vimm, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, we're really I feel like I'm meeting a celebrity right now. Honestly, like you're like a legend in like game preservation. It's crazy. So thank you so much for coming on and doing this with us today.
My pleasure.
So before we get started with Vimm, because we are going to talk about, the website, the timeless classic that a lot of us have grown up on. I mean, I don't think I would know what ROMs are if it wasn't for Vimms Lair, if I'm being honest. And then we're going to get into some game talk. But first, why don't we get into some news? Because what could even be new in the world of retro? Aaron, tell me, what's some new shit? Drop some new shit.
I'll tell you.
Tell me.
Okay. The first emulators hit the App Store. iGBA removed from the App Store shortly after it goes online due to being a complete dumpster fire of ads. That sounds terrible. Also, just a clone of GBA for iOS. I remember having that on my iPod Touch 4 back in the day after I jailbroke it. That was
really
pretty cool back in the day. Always such a process to get anything good running on an iPod or iPhone or anything like that. Delta Emu, now the flagship and only functional emulator for the App Store. Not a bad emulator. Covers SNES, N64, and Game Boy, and DS soon, hopefully.
Yeah. So I had a chance to mess with it, but more importantly, Vimm, you as we were kind of going over these notes, you kind of brought up to me, you were like, hey, don't forget about Delta. So I guess Delta would have probably had some impact on your website. Like, can you elaborate a little bit on that? Like, I'd imagine people are going absolute ham on the ROM downloads now.
Yeah, I could definitely see an effect from Delta because just on a random Wednesday, traffic just spiked tremendously. And
really,
it was what's going on. And so I heard the news of Delta being opened in the App Store and been monitoring social media, seeing what people are saying about it. And it's really popular, and people are looking for places to get the ROMs from. A lot of people are recommending Vimms Lair. So I think that's what caused the spike.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? It's not a bad emulator. I actually, the first place I went, obviously, Vimms Lair was the first place I went. I was like, all right, I got to, because like on my iPhone, you go to your website and then you just, because your website is so clean and easy to navigate. Like you just find the system, click the game, and it starts downloading. There's no bullshit. It's just like, there you go. It's done. And it was really easy, especially for myself on iPhone. Well, this is for iPhone, so it just saves to you just tell it where to save on your files, and then you could just point Delta into that folder, and bang, there you go. You got your ROMs all ready to go. And I actually threw on Mario Kart. Was a little it had some graphical issues in the character selection, but after it got running, it felt pretty good as far as emulation goes. I was pretty impressed.
That's cool.
I don't have an iPhone myself, but people have said good things about it. And the biggest complaint seems to be for the DS emulator, you need the BIOS, and people don't know where to get that. So once they get that sorted out, then they're happy campers. But that's kind of a big barrier to entry at the moment because it's just a weird error message that people don't know what it means.
So is the DS emulator up now for Delta?
Yeah. From what I've read, the DS emulator does work. You just need the BIOS, and Genesis is currently a work in progress.
Ooh, that's cool.
Crazy. That's wild. I'm actually surprised that RetroArch didn't get on there quicker.
Well, maybe they will be soon. Who knows?
Yeah,
it's really not on the Apple iStore yet. RetroArch.
No. Well, I mean, Delta's I don't know why. Like, I mentioned this on, I think, last week's episode. Apple out of nowhere just, like, opened the floodgates.
Yeah.
Like, they just were like, yeah, let's put emulators on the App Store. After how many years of being, like, against it? And then all of a sudden it's just, let's just open the floodgates. So I don't know why. I mean, you could put, if your phone is jailbroken, you can put RetroArch on there. Because if you go on the RetroArch website, there's download links for iOS, but it tells you, like, you have to have your phone jailbroken. But I don't know. I would imagine eventually we'll probably see that, but it'll be interesting to see how Delta goes, you know, like, to see how it compares to that. And, like, I don't really know, like, Vim, do you know what emulator, like, Delta's using for, like, the N64 or, like, the SNES, like, what cores they're using?
No, I haven't read up too much on it. I've heard the N64 core is rather crude, doesn't work very well, but, you know, for games that does play, it works fine.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I threw Mario Kart on it, and other than, like, some graphical issues, which, again, if this emulator's, like, brand new, props to them for having that even functioning. I mean, I remember, you know, back in the day, discovering ROMs for the first time. Like, N64 was like a fever dream. Like, that was not happening. And it was, I mean, even now today, like, N64 is not well emulated.
No,
like, it's not perfect. Yeah. Like, it still works, but it's not perfect. I mean, as close as we've gotten to, like, damn near perfect emulation, quote unquote, is Robert's N64 core on the Mister, which is pretty damn good, save for, like, I think 5 games that don't work. But yeah, it's cool. It's really cool, and that is cool that that all of a sudden you just see this spike on your website that's because of this emulator. So it's really neat to see that there's, like, this ripple effect of things like that releasing, and then you seeing the other side of it.
Yeah, it actually crashed my server a few times. I had to do some
No way.
Yeah, just too much traffic for it to handle.
God bless you, Delta.
It's one of those good problems.
Yeah, for sure. Some other things that have come out recently. GameBoy Wars got a translation.
That's cool.
You can find that over on ROM hacking. Yeah, so that's, I didn't know about this until I literally seen the translation pop up, and this looks like it's the first game of this type before Super Famicom Wars, which was essentially the precursor to Advance Wars.
Okay. Cool.
Like, all those are, like, the same thing. And this just looks like I think there actually might have been one of these games on NES, but this is the Game Boy one.
That sounds right. Yeah, they've had Fire Emblem
Yeah.
since, like, the NES. That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you can find.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was going to say, so the Game Boy Wars translation was released by NES, and again, you can find that over on romhacking.net. And then, as I was bringing up this, like, just I was going to bring up the page for Game Boy Wars, I stumbled upon this Golden Bonds game for Wii. I have never heard of this.
Golden Bonds,
ever.
Wii.
Like, it just showed up, and I was looking at it, and I was like, shit, this looks good. Like,
whoa,
it's like it's an art. Yeah,
that main character has, dude. That's cool.
He looks like the main character from Ys.
Yeah,
what's his name?
Adol.
What's that guy's name? Abel.
Adol.
Abel. Edible.
That looks like a really cool game, though.
So yeah, I know. I stumbled upon it. So it was released by Brand Newman. When did this get published? On the 26th. So not that long ago. So I just stumbled upon this. Let's go check that out. That's over on ROM hacking as well. But that's enough about the news. I want to know everything about Vimms Lair. I want to know everything. I want to come away from this podcast and I want to be like, I want to get a shirt. I want to get a hat. I want to be a Vimms Lair, like, nerd. I want to know everything.
Oh crap! I should have worn the shirt. Oh well, I didn't think about it.
Oh, do you have a shirt?
Yeah, I had one made up recently as kind of a test run.
Nice.
Awesome.
I will absolutely order one of those. Please tell me when they're being made. So again, our guest today, Vim. If you don't already know, Vim, why don't you give us a little tidbit about yourself? Why don't you tell the listeners who you are and what you've been up to?
Usually don't talk too much about myself. I'm a programmer, pretty obviously, and Vimm's Lair is a passion of mine. It's a hobby that's kind of evolved into its own thing. And I'm a programmer by day and gamer by night. And I don't know, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I get it. But yeah, that's amazing. I mean, you started the website in 1997, correct?
Right.
Dang. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's been around for a minute.
Probably, I think it's the oldest ROM site definitely on the internet, and one of the oldest emulation sites as well.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a friend of mine I was in grade 6, and he was like, "Do you know that you can play Pokemon on your computer?" And I was like, "How? That's impossible." And he was like, "I'm coming over and I'm showing you." He came over with a goddamn floppy disk, popped it in, and was like, "There you go. Here's this thing called an emulator." And I was like, "I don't know what that is." And he just copied it all over to my desktop. There's just files everywhere, visual diarrhea all over my desktop. And he was like, "So you got to go to this website, okay? You can mark this down, write down on a piece of paper." I wrote it down on my desk. I didn't have paper, and I literally, with a marker, wrote down your website on my desk. So it was it was just there.
Oh my gosh.
And he was like, "You got to go to this website, Vimms Lair, and you just pick a game." And I was like, "That's impossible. There's no way. This is impossible." And I'll never forget the first game I think I ever downloaded from your website. We talked about last week, Demon's Crest. Didn't even know it existed. And that's the thing. I feel like I discovered so many games just from your site. You know what, dude? One of my favorite games of all time, I never would have played it if it wasn't for your website, and that's Senken Densetsu 3, Secret of Mana 2.
Yep.
I
love translations. I got a soft spot for good translations.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
that's something that's really only possible because of emulators.
Exactly.
That's so true.
And it's a shame too, because man, even sometimes an official translation will be done, and then these translator groups will do it better because the translation's absolute dog shit, from the official source. And then translator groups would be like, no, that's not at all what they're trying to convey with the message of this part or whatever. And I've seen so many times, even I know Final Fantasy 6 or Final Fantasy 3 over here, it was retranslated by translation groups so many times because they were like, the original translation is fine, but it's not really there's a lot of little nuances there that you're missing. And it's just really cool to see that kind of preservation. And of course, that is exactly what you're all about. You have been preserving the classics since 1997.
That's right.
I love that slogan, dude. I swear to God, I'm going to get tattooed on my chest.
People often ask, when was the site made? So I figured just put it up front, and it's been there for a long time now.
Yeah. And that's something else I like about your site. Your site looks as far as I can remember, it looks the same as it did back then. And I'm telling you right now, I love that shit because nostalgia is a drug to people our age now. And it's just, it's one thing to be nostalgia about games and stuff like that and having an amazing website where you can get them all, but just the website itself is now nostalgic to me, which
I know.
is really cool.
I love the irony.
It's so good. So good. So, the question that we ask all of our guests, which means this is the first time we're asking it because you are the first guest of many to come. But the guest question is, what is your favorite console?
Well, my favorite console of all time would be the Super Nintendo.
Yes. Sorry, go on.
I had a Nintendo growing up, and it was fun, but it was kind of limited by the technology. And the Super Nintendo just evolved the technology and allowed the games to evolve as well. And that was kind of the golden age of 2D gaming before it all jumped the shark with PlayStation and N64.
Yeah, for sure. I also have a very, very soft spot in my heart for the Super Nintendo. I mean, I had that thing from whatever the year that it came out. I think it was 91, I think. And I think I had that until 97. So the year that Vimms Lair came out, I had my Super Nintendo. Aaron, you please tell me you had a Super Nintendo growing up, please.
I'm pretty sure. I'm fairly certain. I know for sure we had the NES. Hold on. So we for sure had the NES. We for sure had a PS1. I remember at some point in our room, we had an SNES because I got to a certain point in Link to the Past, and I told my mom about it. I was like, Mom, I found this fairy, and she soothes your wounds. And my mom was like, what are you talking about? I'm fairly certain that we had one. But I do love the SNES. I think what I love most about the system is all the Japanese titles that you don't even know exist, that you just kind of find out about maybe years later. Like there's always something new to find on that system. There's so many like hidden gems and just games that didn't come here that are getting fan translations. That's just like I don't know how they found this or how they had the time to translate it, but thank you.
Yeah, I mean, is like Vim was saying, like the translation aspect of the preservation wouldn't be possible without ROMs, you know? So, Vim, Super Nintendo, what would you say are some games that you always recommend on the Super Nintendo? Like something like when someone's like, Super Nintendo, huh? Haven't heard of it. and you're like, well, you got to play. What are those must plays for you?
Well, I'm an RPG fan, so my top RPG is definitely Final Fantasy III.
Hell yeah.
That's the best Final Fantasy in my book. And for multiplayer, love the Bomberman series. Super Bomberman is a great party game.
Yes.
Speaking to my heart.
Yep. Get that multi-tap going. I don't know anybody that had that multi-tap, though.
Yeah, I had one.
Really?
It's sold with Super Bomberman 1, so I got it as a bundle.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's cool.
Man.
And then Secret of Mana used it, and Bomberman 2, of course, used it.
Yep. Are you Secret of Mana fan?
It was fun. It's Zelda with RPG elements. And it's 3-player if you have
that's
3
the thing,
people
like,
that can play.
When you think back to like what the Super Nintendo, like back then, it's like this was a cooperative game from essentially start to finish as an action RPG. I feel like that's crazy, right? Like that's insane for the time.
Very unique. Yeah.
Yeah, and it did it well too. Like the whole like the way that the ring menu will like kind of pause what's going on, so you kind of have a second to be like, okay, you should heal or you should cast the spell. Like it's fantastic. And
or
like
eat some chocolate.
Yeah, eat those candies, those chocolates. Throw down an Angel's Grail.
Yeah, we definitely played it.
Hell yeah, yeah, we have. I mean, Aaron's got a tattoo of what is it, Shade?
Yeah, hold on. I can't really bend my arm that way, but yeah, there he is.
So for the listeners, Aaron has taken his entire shirt off to show Vim. I'm just kidding.
Right across my chest.
Right across your chest. Man. And then the other thing I am always going to ask going forward is, what is your favorite video game memory?
Probably my favorite one is somewhat related to Vimms Lair.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Because as a kid, I had a friend down the street, and we both had a Nintendo, and didn't really have many co-op games, but, on Nintendo, you had the 2-player games where you take turns. So as I was first building Vimms Lair and building up the catalog, at the time, you couldn't really tell what a game was until you just opened up the game and played it. Because sites would often have games mislabeled, or it would be in Japanese or German. And so what I would do to build the catalog is test every game myself to check, this is what it says it is. And then I'd snap a screenshot for posterity and throw that on Vimms Lair too.
Wow.
And one game that I came across is called Karnov. And it was very, very oddly familiar. And it turns out that I played it with the kid down the street. We would take turns, and we got about to the 3rd level and could never get past that. And when I was in 6th grade, I think, his parents got divorced and he moved away, and I never saw him again.
Man.
And seeing Karnov and remembering, hey, we played this together, and then loading it up in the emulator and playing through it, and it was so weirdly familiar, even though I hadn't seen it in years. But it reminded me of the friendship we had together. And I got to the 3rd level, and using save states, I decided that I would finally beat it for the first time.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, apparently there's a 4th level that we never reached.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, I beat the 3rd level, and then it just gets way worse.
You were like this one goes out to you, neighbor kid.
Yeah. So that was really neat. And I never would have experienced that if it weren't for emulation and building Vimms Lair. Would have totally forgotten about that game.
That's so crazy. Because like I actually have like almost like a similar like me and my really good friend who I'm still very good friends with, and I've mentioned him on this show, I've mentioned him on our other show, Super Ghost, good friend of the podcast, Dalo. Him and I basically like formed our friendship on 2 things: The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, because we were both stuck at the water temple at the same time in grade 6, and also like every weekend it was like he was coming over and he was like, okay, let's go on Vimms Lair and let's just download a bunch of random shit and just like try some stuff. And it's kind of like what you were saying, like we were just stumbling upon things like that we've never even heard of before and just throwing stuff on. I swear to God, I have never seen to that point what Smash TV was until I downloaded it, because I was like, Smash TV, that sounds cool, and I like downloaded it. I'm like, man, this is wild. And again, Demon's Crest, I threw that on. I was just like, what is this game? This is crazy. What is this? Why didn't I ever know about this? So yeah, it was wild to like actually start playing these games. And it was cool. You know, it was almost like the same kind of feeling. Like, you remember going to like a Blockbuster and there was no like real review sites or anything like that. You might get a magazine, get a couple screenshots and be like, oh, that looks cool, I want to play that. But then you go to like a Blockbuster and what did you have? You had the back of the box. And like, that's all you had to go by was the back of the box. As a kid, I was like not reading that shit. I was just looking at like the pictures and going, oh yeah, I want to rent this. And like, I feel like it's almost like a similar type of thing. Like back in the day, like browsing your website was just kind of like, oh, what that sounds cool. And just downloading it and just seeing just crazy shit.
Yeah, and it kind of evolved like that too, because one of the early features that people requested was to review and rate games.
Yeah.
And for just that reason. So that was added by request so people could do that.
Is there any like, do you know if there's like a worst reviewed game on your site?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
What is it?
Super Nintendo game called Bebe's Kids.
No way. That's the worst reviewed game?
Yeah, everybody just totally hates that game.
I remember on the licensed games episode you did with me, that was one of the first games you mentioned.
As a joke, yeah. Oh man, that's hilarious. I would imagine, I think like if you go to like right on the front page of the site, like or like once you click into the vault, and you start looking at like the different systems, it shows like the top downloads of
right.
Or like top downloads and then like top rated. I'd imagine. Let me just go over here and have a peek.
I'm already on it. What do you want to know?
Super Nintendo.
On
Let's
the
see.
SNES vault.
Overall, and I like how like you also have like graphics, sound, and gameplay ratings as well. Like dude, I'm serious. Like this site is such a gift to people that like enjoy retro gaming and just like the preservation and even just like the discovery of stuff that you would have never stumbled upon. It's such a treat.
Yeah. Well, it's not scientific. Like apparently sometime recently somebody started upvoting every tennis game in existence as a joke, and some people have caught on to that.
No way.
So I've seen people on social media going, oh, what's with all the tennis games top rated at Vimms Lair? But it's designed to, over time, it self-adjusts. New ratings get priority over old ratings, so over time it'll always change.
Let's get in a little deeper, I guess, with Vimms Lair, because as I said, it's been a staple of my childhood, and I like, there's so many things like just about the website, and just like even just like your own, not to get into personal details, but like more so about your personal like collection, like what systems you have, and like what your current setup is, and like what you're kind of rocking nowadays. But I guess the first question would be like, how did this start? Like, take us back to how this started. Like, what made you go, you know what the internet needs? It needs a ROM site.
Well, it first started Vimms Lair started in 97, but the site itself started in late 96, I think. I just had my internet provider offered free web space, and I was teaching myself how to program on TI calculators.
Oh, wow.
So,
Nice.
you could build simple little games on those, and, kids would pass around the games, and I'd tinker with them and try to improve them. And I had started to build my own games. And so I thought, I could figure out how a website works, and maybe I'll put my games on them and share them on the internet. So my internet provider offered some free web space. I took them up on it and used an HTML editor to build just a very basic website. And eventually I found there's already a very large site for calculator games, ticalc.org, I think. And their games put mine to shame. So I kind of gave up and threw it away until I found a kid playing Super Mario Brothers on a computer. I was like, hey, that's cool. How you doing this on this crappy old school computer? And he showed me about emulators and ROMs. And I poked around a little bit, thought it was fun, and realized, hey, this could be a good subject for the site. So that's kind of how the seed was planted. And as I looked at different sites, there were a lot that I liked, but every site had things I liked and things I didn't like. So I took what I liked from the sites that I did and started to build a site of my own, taking the best pieces of many other emulation sites and combining them into my own.
That's very cool.
That's so awesome. It really does have like everything. I was just perusing through a couple games when you were getting toward the end there. I was looking at like Super Metroid, and of course you can download the ROM, but it's got all these cheats and like reviews from other people, and you can play it like in the browser, which is so cool. Like try before you buy, or try before you download kind of thing. It's got everything you could ever need. It's so awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, how does that work? Like, because that's a feature that has been somewhat new. Like that, I feel like that came around in the last maybe 5 to 8 years.
Oh yeah, it's pretty much newer than that. JavaScript is pretty limiting on what it can do, so you can't really do much in regards to a JavaScript emulator in a web browser. But over the past few years, JavaScript's gotten a lot more powerful, and they've unlocked more stuff that you can do with it. And some of the emulators are now compatible enough that people can build front ends for them that work great on the web browser.
That's crazy. So like, for like a Super Nintendo, like let's use Super Metroid as an example. Like if I go over there right now and I click play online, and it just fires up Super Metroid, like how's that working? Like, is it using like a core, or is it using like a specific emulator as a back end?
Yes. So I don't know too much about the internals. The online emulator I'm using now is managed by Emulator.js at emulatorjs.org. So they do all the building, and I think it's built on RetroArch.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So many of the cores that it supports are compatible with JavaScript, and so it can run those specific cores. It can't do the more advanced ones because there's still a lot of limitations on the web browser. But the basic cores, it can run pretty well.
That's crazy. Like, that's super cool. I mean, it's really neat to see like that your website is just continuing to evolve over time. It's fantastic. what is it like maintaining this site? Like, is it a lot of work, or is this just like because you seem like you're fairly well spoken for like programming and stuff. So like, is this just something that's easy, like a little hobby on the side, or is this like a really taxing thing?
It comes and goes. I mean, it started as a hobby, just a little learning exercise, but it's taught me so much. I can't even begin to say how much I've learned from it. Basically, when things are running smoothly, I don't have to do anything. It works like clockwork. The problem is when things break or when I need to expand. That's when things get hairy. And when something doesn't work, I'm on the hook to fix it.
Yeah.
And you know how the internet gets when something doesn't work perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What do you mean Vimms down? I want my ROMs now. I must take to Twitter and let everybody know how much I hate him now.
So that's why I tried to get in front of the Delta surge. The main web server was just swamped. It ran out of CPU and memory, and just kept crashing repeatedly. And people aren't going to take that for long. Yeah. And that forced me to make some quick fixes. What's causing the server to be so overloaded, and how can I help it so that it can handle all the traffic? And ultimately, I found two fairly quick things to implement, and now the server's very happy and everything's good.
Have to appease the server gods.
Yeah, but it just comes out of nowhere. You never know when a problem's going to pop up, and you got to be ready to fix it.
I remember seeing one time somebody was bitching about the download speeds or something on your website, and they're like, "We got like 14 ROMs downloading right now, and like it's not working right." And people were like, "Oh, boo-hoo! Is it really rough that you can't download 1,000 of it, like overload the thing?" But yeah, like I've never like I don't know, just grab the games that I want, couple at a time,
Yeah. I know there's collectors. They want to just hoard as many games as they can, and Vimms Lair supports that, but it's really about the nostalgia.
Yeah.
The idea is that you download one game, you play that, and sure, you can have another game downloading at the same time, but the purpose is to play the games, not to collect them and post them like a trophy.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, well, I was going to ask you about some trials and tribulations, but I think you kind of already answered that with, things going down, servers crashing and stuff. But one thing that I'm really curious about is what's your actual collection that you have now? Like, what do you collect yourself, or do you kind of focus on like specific platforms maybe? Or are you like an all digital guy?
I've always been a Nintendo fan, so I have all the Nintendo consoles.
Nice.
And matter of fact, I've got a pretty good Super Nintendo collection.
Nice.
In the official Super Nintendo carrier.
Is that what that is? Oh man.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, my very own personal Final Fantasy 3, of course.
Ooh.
So yeah, I've got all the good RPGs. And I never sell a game. I don't buy many games, but I never sell them. So I've got a kind of a small collection of my greatest hits, maybe 1 or 2 dozen games per console, but that's about it. Doesn't take up a lot of space.
And are your consoles, are they hooked up?
They are, actually. For a long time, many years ago at Vimms Lair, I sold used games on the site. And so I would test the games before I shipped them. And so in order to do that, got to have every console hooked up.
That's cool. Yeah.
So I'd clean the game and test it and then ship it out knowing that it worked.
Yeah. How do you feel about Breath of Fire 2? Because that seems to be like anytime I kind of like the game.
He's reaching down.
Anytime I bring it up to anybody, it's super divisive.
Sorry.
You either love it or hate it. Then most people that I talk to, maybe I just have terrible friends. Most people I talk to, they're like, no, it's awful. But I don't know. I like it.
It's been a long time since I played that. And I played the first one. I wasn't too impressed. The auto battle mechanic kind of took the fun out of it.
Yep.
If you can
Forgot about
just
that.
press one button and it does the battle for you, then what am I here for?
Yeah, maybe they put that in there because like there's I feel like I remember because I have maybe only ever played this game 4 or 5 times ever, and it's not that I didn't like it, but I remember the random encounters just being like out
It's
of
atrocious.
control. Like
It's
you're trying
insane.
to walk on the world map and just like battle, walk 2 steps, battle.
And
Maybe
the
that's why
combat itself had no randomness to it. The combat order was set, especially on your speed and only your speed, and it was always the same order. So if you know how the fight is going to play out the moment it starts, and you can just hit auto battle to get through it, combine that with so many random encounters, well, yeah, it gets old fast.
Yeah,
It does. I haven't gotten very far in the second game. I've played a little bit of the first one, and not to get us too far off track from what we're talking about, but I love talking about RPGs and stuff. But one thing I really, really hate about the first Breath of Fire is that there's like no skills that you can use. There's like there is no variety to the combat. It's just like the main guy attacks and like that's it. Or like what's the girl's name? I forget. She just heals, and then the other guy just attacks as well too. And I guess to lead off of that, Vim, what's your favorite? No, you already said it's Final Fantasy 3. What am I thinking? Sorry.
yeah, man. Everybody hears that
Continue.
opera scene, and they just go, I guess this is the best Super Nintendo game of all time.
Or the Kefka laugh. It's so iconic.
Man.
Like,
yeah, I love that.
And Final Fantasy 3 is the only one that for so many years they never remastered. They remastered all the others, but 3 was always left out. I think the Pixel remaster is the first one to truly do it.
Yep. And
so
you know what?
I'm definitely curious to play that.
I got some beef with those Pixel remasters. Actually, like I actually prefer to play all those Final Fantasy games on their original hardware. I feel like a lot of times, and like I've had this conversation with a lot of friends, that a lot of these HD remakes and like remasters and stuff that come out, they're not really doing anything spectacular. Like I would actually just rather go back, play the original games on the hardware they were intended for, because 9 times out of 10, it's just better that way. There's like exceptions like Live Alive.
Like Chrono Cross. The remaster of Chrono Cross is like, it's the best way to play it. I shit you not, it's the best way. Go play Chrono Cross, yeah.
Okay. The Radical Dreamers collection, that thing?
Yeah, not to get us off track again. But like the original on the PS1, especially in combat, there's a lot of slowdown, especially against the final boss. There's a lot of slowdown. So when you're going to attack, instead of being like slice dice, they'll be like slow-mo almost at like 2 frames a second. But the recent the Radical Dreamers collection, it speeds it up a lot and it makes it a lot better.
That's good to know. So that's a great game.
That is a good one. Yeah.
More people should play.
I'll give you another point. Yeah.
So what would you say are like some dreams or aspirations that you want to do for the site? Like what would be, because like if I take it back to what we were talking about earlier about how like your site is continually evolving over time with the addition of adding like the ability to play the games online from the website through JavaScript. What are some dreams and aspirations that you have for the future of the site?
Well, still thinking on that actually. The most recent goal was to expand to worldwide games. Vimms Lair was US focused for a very long time, right, and recently expand every system in the vault to have the whole worldwide collection. So I guess the next step is to expand that to more classic consoles, because there's still a bunch of consoles that aren't in the vault yet.
Oh,
like
yeah.
The Tiger Gizmondo.
Stop talking about that thing.
Well, there are a lot of obscure consoles that didn't have a lot of games, and technically, it would be fairly simple to add them at this point, since I have the infrastructure in place that I can basically push a button to build an entire vault.
Yeah, that's wild.
So cool.
So one thing I'm considering is to expand on that. So if I can create a vault with the push of a button, why not just push that button for every single system in redump and no intro? And then I would have a complete library of every known game in the world.
That would be crazy.
That'd be really cool.
That would be insane to just have.
And it can be community maintained, so that as no intro and redump discover updates and new games, the community is empowered to keep it current.
That's fantastic. That's my dream. That's my dream too. So the ROMs that are on there, are they all no intro?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything not no intro, like a translation, for example, it is clearly labeled.
Okay, cool.
That'd be so cool to have everything all in one place, because, man, sometimes it is so hard to find games for, say, the TurboGrafx 16. Like, if Edge emulation is cool, sure, but sometimes they just don't have every game, and that's really, really annoying. Same with like arcade stuff. Oh my god, it is so hard to find like a complete ROM set for arcade games, and it drives me up the wall sometimes. There's too many arcade games, so I
was actually going to ask you about that. Like, have you ever like thought about dabbling in that? Because I know that it is like I've tried to do arcade emulation, and it is such a pain in the ass. Like, you got to have like different versions of MAME. Like, there's a whole thing. And the first time that I've actually been able to enjoy having arcade was with the Mister, because the way that the Mister works, you literally hit update all on the Mister, and as new arcade cores, because each arcade game is its own core being developed. So once those cores get developed, they automatically just update to the Mister. And I don't have to worry about any settings, nothing. It's just like, oh, this game's now available.
So insane. That's
so
crazy.
For your website, like, have you ever thought about putting arcade stuff on there?
It sounds really messy, so I've generally avoided it. A console, you've got one system and thousands of games. It's a lot cleaner. So maybe one day, but there's still a lot more consoles out there.
Yeah, I know. Like, I mean, even the same way that I've been just finding out about like new games through like new translations and ROM hacks and stuff like that. Like, I feel like I've been discovering more and more lately that there's just like all these really weird, obscure consoles that I've never heard about. Like really old stuff too. Like, even on the Mister, like there's like when I would go down through like the list of cores, I'd be like, what is that? What is that thing? And I'd look it up and I would be like, I've never seen this thing in my life. Like, never even heard of this thing. Matter of fact, on the last episode of Superpod that I was on with Aaron, we were talking about the best handheld games. And of course, I like to joke around. So my first pick, which wasn't actually my first pick, was the Tiger Gizmondo. Of course, it was the Game Boy Advance. But I just wanted to poke some fun. But the funny part was one of the other guests on the show was like, oh, he got all excited when I said the Gizmondo. Again, I was joking, and he like reaches back and he's like, I have it. And I was like, oh, sorry, shit, man, I was just joking. But that's cool that you have that thing. So do you have any like weird, obscure stuff yourself?
I think the most unique thing that I have is a Super Wild Card. It was one of the original Super Nintendo cartridge copiers.
Oh.
And it used 3.5-inch discs, or it could connect to a external zip drive to copy cartridges or load games into memory from. And so I used that to play not Secret of Mana, Tales of Fantasia, the translation, on a
Oh,
real Super Nintendo
nice.
using the Super Wildcard.
Oh man, you are like OG ROM translations. Like that's that. Like we take for granted the like you crawled with ROM translations so that we could run with them. That's nuts, man. We take it for granted. We just go to Vimms Lair and go, I want the translation and I want it now. Meanwhile, you had like a whole setup just to play a translation. That's
Well, I
so
could have played
insane.
it on the computer, but it's more fun playing it on the real console.
Yeah, that's
It
crazy.
really is.
Oh man, that's some wild shit. So yeah, go ahead.
One really cool game I discovered through Vim's Lair actually was so one day I was just perusing the PlayStation library. I was in the B section. What was I looking
You're
for?
in aisle B.
Yeah, at aisle B. I think I was looking for Brigandine or Brigandine. Not sure how you pronounce it, but I was looking for that. And then I saw that there's like 4 or 5 Mega Man games on there. So I was like, what? And so there's a Bomberman. Of course, there's Bomberman World and like another like regular Bomberman game, but then there's a Bomberman racing game and a Bomberman strategy RPG, Bomberman Wars. They both rock. So thank you, Vim. I never would have known about it's for sure Bomberman Wars because that was Japan only, but translated on your site. So thank you for Bomberman Wars.
Yeah, translations are fun, and for a long time I did try to keep them current, so that Super Nintendo in particular try to get the latest translations on there. But over time it's kind of fallen by the wayside in favor of adding more consoles. But I would like to get back to that. I think all the PlayStation 2 translations are current, and Super Nintendo is pretty current, but it's a lot of work to keep
I'm sure.
keep all the latest translations up there. But I know it can be a pain to figure out how to patch them, especially for beginners. So having it pre-translated is a huge help for people.
Yeah. I mean, I think I had never patched one myself. Like the first time I'm pretty sure the very first translated ROM that I ever played was Senka Densetsu 3. That was the very first one. And I think the second one was Go-Go Ackman. Which is really cool. If you don't know, listeners, if you don't know about Go-Go Ackman, let me tell you. That's a really fun platformer, and it's all art not inspired. I'm pretty sure Akira Toriyama did the artwork. I mean, the character, Ackman, looks like Trunks. Like, that's Trunks from Dragon Ball.
Yeah, it really is.
Right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure Akira Toriyama did the art for that thing. R.I.P. Akira Toriyama. But yeah, like I never patched my own translations until like kind of recently. Like when stuff would show up on ROM hacking and it was like super fresh and I was like, oh, I want to play that. And I'm like, it's not already pre-patched anywhere that I can see. And then I would have to like do it myself. And it was just like, holy shit, this is this is not, I mean, I could figure it out. I'm fairly good with a computer, but like even for myself, like I was like, okay, I put it in this folder and then I do this thing and hope for the best. And I'm pretty sure I like messed it up the first time and it just didn't even work. And then like now there's like these new my buddy was showing me, he showed me this what's it called? It's a Metroid. You know how they've been able to now extract like the actual game from these, like basically like the source, and then so essentially what this game is it's Metroid for NES ported to Super Nintendo. So you can literally play it on Super Nintendo, and it's got like updated music. I think it's like Metroid M3U or something, and it's got like an orchestrated soundtrack that plays, and like it plays like you can play it on the Super Nintendo. Like it's wild how this thing works. Has like cutscenes and shit at the beginning of the game. Like it's pretty nuts what they've been able to do with this stuff. And that's like the
wild.
Did you see the how they took like the source code from Link's Awakening, like the original Link's Awakening, and they like ported it to PC, and it was like you could zoom all the way out and see like the whole map as you're playing in real time. Like, I'm serious. It's crazy. It's like there was no need.
Wild.
There's no need for this thing to exist, but they did it, and it's actually really cool.
I love stuff like that. That's so cool. Oh man,
Vim, do you mess around with any ROM hacks?
No, not ROM hacks so much. I like translations now and then, but there's so many hacks out there, and there's already so many good games to play that I don't really look at the hacks much.
The one thing that I do like with ROM hacks, and I think it was done in a ROM hack recently, was I think they fixed Breath of Fire. I think they actually like tweaked it so that they were like the random encounters weren't just like constant.
And you get more XP and more gold.
Okay, yeah. I knew it was something like that.
To compensate for the lack of encounters.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Got to balance that out. Balance Breath of Fire. So yeah, it's cool to see stuff like that. Now, you know, we've obviously talked a ton about retro stuff, but like what kind of new things do you still play, like newer consoles? Is there anything that like you're currently playing?
I do have a Switch that I played now and then.
Nice.
What have I played? I like strategy and RPGs, so I've played the Xenoblade Chronicles.
Oh,
played 2 and 3, and also I like Fire Emblem. So played through 3 houses and played Engage. It was okay.
It's funny because I was literally asking Aaron about this the other night. I was like, "What do you think about Fire Emblem Engage?" Because I always hear like polarizing things about it. I like Fire Emblem, but my Fire Emblem jam is like the GBA one. That was like, for me, that was like all killer, no filler, and it was just like to the point, battles, little bit of text, battles, and I really enjoyed that. And then I remember from that I tried to jump into 3 houses, and I was like, what I don't want to date people, I don't want to go to school. Like, what's going on here? It was like a Persona game. But I like Persona. But I don't know. I just don't want it in my Fire Emblem games.
Yeah, finding the right balance is a challenge.
Have you ever played Triangle Strategy before? That's a really good one for Switch anyway.
Oh no, haven't heard about that one.
It's got that like HD 2D style of like Octopath Traveler and Live Alive, but it's got like the tactics gameplay kind of like Tactics Ogre, and each character is super unique and like their personality, like the ways they talk, and also like their combat style and stuff. If you haven't checked that one out, that's like my favorite strategy RPG on the Switch right now.
Cool, that sounds up my alley.
I would also say that if you haven't yet, along with Triangle Strategy, because I know my co-host on Super Ghost Radio, Beth, she played that and she liked it quite a bit. But the newest one that I've been hearing all the buzz about, and I have actually played the intro to this. Unicorn Overlord is something else, man. It is fantastic. That is like, for people that I know that really enjoy strategy games, that game is like chef's kiss. And I know this is a retro show, but like I gotta mention it. If you're like a strategy RPG guy, like Unicorn Overlord does it the best. Absolutely recommend that one.
I'll believe it when I see it, man. Triangle Strategy set the bar like to the heavens. I need to get that game and check that out though.
Yep, for sure. One last thing that I wanted to talk about with regards to your website is, what would you say, like, I know that, like, if you go to the website and it, like, you go to the vault, like, what would you say is the most downloaded ROMs? Like, what system, or like, is there like a ROM, like one ROM in particular that's like, that's the one? people come to my website, they're making a beeline for this ROM.
Well, you can see the listing of the top 10 on each system, and they don't change too often. It's often very similar from month to month. And lately, Delta actually broke the numbers.
Really?
Because it only goes up to 32,000. And due to Delta traffic, a lot of Nintendo games went over 32,000 downloads. So that tells you what people are downloading.
Holy shit.
So if you look at the top 10 Nintendo games right now, yep, Super Mario Brothers is always number one.
Oh, of course. Oh my gosh. 32 million.
I'm curious to see what the top downloaded game is for. Interesting. For the Sega 32X is Knuckles Chaotix.
Because you can't get it anywhere else. They just refuse to remaster that thing. They're just like, no. They'll remaster literally every other Sonic game, and then when they get to Knuckles Chaotix, they're like, no.
No, you may not have this game. Where is it? There's one. Yeah, here we go. There we go. So I specifically clicked on the Virtual Boy because I wanted to make damn well sure that Wario Land was the top download, because that's like, that might be like, that's up there with like one of the best Wario games, and it's easily the best game on that console. It's such a good game.
Not a lot of competition on that console.
Yeah.
What do you mean? There's like at least 30 something games, right? Or what was it, like 20? Is there like 20 something?
Yeah, I think it's closer to 20 something.
Oh, the poor Virtual Boy. The poor Virtual Boy.
I like how the most downloaded game for the Atari Lynx is Batman Returns. That's pretty cool.
Really?
Yeah. I'm a
Batman Returns.
Ever since when I got my my Anbernic device for the first time, and like I looked in the ROMs folder or games folder or whatever, there's so many different systems. Like they don't say exactly what system each folder is for. They kind of like abbreviate it. So there's a bunch that I've discovered recently that I've kind of started digging into a little bit. And yeah, I can kind of understand why not everything is on Vimms Lair, because there's a lot of stuff. Like you've got all the Sega Sammy stuff. You've got, or I forget what the name of the actual board is. There's the Pokemon Mini thing that had games. You can download ROMs for those. There's so many like cool, but at the same time not cool like ROMs and stuff that you can download. Like you could download what is it? The Pocket Station. You could download ROMs for that too, which is insane. Yeah.
Forgot about that thing.
So for
crazy.
completionism, I want to have them all, but on the other hand, I don't want to clutter the menu with all those obscure systems that nobody cares about.
You almost have to have like a sub menu. A sub menu for just like, you didn't come here for this, but just check this out real quick.
Well, that's part of building a website, is how do you present the information intuitively so that somebody looking for those consoles can find them easily, but yet they don't get in the way of all the people who aren't looking for them. And UI development is a big part of Vimms Lair as well.
Yep, and that's the thing too. Like it again, it's just a clean website. It's so easy to navigate everything here. Like, yeah, it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare it to, again, say Edge emulation, it's just Edge emulation is just all text. I really love that Vimms Lair has images. They have, again, you can play stuff on the website to see if it's good before you download it, so you don't just waste time downloading it, scraping it, all that stuff, getting it on your hardware, and then being like, oh, this kind of sucks. And I appreciate all the small things that Vimms Lair has that most other sites don't. It's awesome. I love it.
Thanks. Yeah, I try hard. And Edge has been around for a long time too. He's in the double decade club as well. I tend not to visit other sites anymore, other than just to learn what people like about them. But
Yeah.
I check social media to see what people say.
All right. Well, I guess we'll take it away into our closing moments here, and yeah, we'll be right back. Hey, Aaron.
Hey, Jer.
You ever feel like you're a little bit malnourished, haven't got a lot of protein in your diet?
All the time.
Well, let me tell you all about Pikmin protein shakes. You know those little guys.
God.
You know the little. The little Pikmin, the cute little guys that run around. Olimar tells them, "Hey, go pick up that nice little that half-eaten apple, and we're gonna get... Nope, fuck that. We're throwing those little guys into a blender, blending them down, and drinking them." That's right. The harder the Pikmin suffer, the better the protein shake. And let me tell you, folks, you got all those colors. You got the red Pikmin, you got the blue Pikmin. It's kind of like taking a pack of Starburst and just eating them all at once. It's just an explosion of flavors. But you just get to, you get to watch these poor little Pikmin suffer just for a minute. It's like, it's no longer than watching like a lobster suffer while you're cooking it in scalding hot water.
Or crab.
Right?
It doesn't have to be a lobster. It could be a crab.
Or it could be any of those.
There's
They scream when they...
Yeah, we don't discriminate against shellfish.
No, and they scream when they get boiled. Not the Pikmin. You just turn that blender on and poof, they're done. They are protein Pikmin powder, ready for you to digest.
Act now. And you could even get the Pikmin shaker cup. That's right. You could pour Pikmin into a cup and fucking shake them to death. Pour some milk in there, drown them a little bit, shake them. You get that like shaker ball on the inside, so it pulverizes them.
It's just a rock.
I'm so
that
sad.
You made them go pick up.
Yeah.
So thank you, Pikmin Protein, for sponsoring this show.
Thank you. Thank you for your lives, Pikmin.
And
we're back. Yeah. Edit that so we say it at the same time.
Yeah. All right. So in closing, as always, we are going to give you some recommended games. I'll let you go first, Aaron, because when I seen you put this on here, I was like, oh, this game, man. This is, good one. And you can get it over on Vimms Lair.
It's Devil's Crush. It's one of my favorite games in the TurboGrafx 16. It's just endless, mindless fun. It's just a pinball game. It's got all of this like fantasy, like I guess like evil satanic stuff on it. I don't know how else to explain it besides saying something like that. But yeah, it's got all these little monsters that you blast with like the pinball. And it's got this like gigantic, like gross head in the middle, and you're constantly blasting it with the ball until it grows darker. And I don't know, it's just cool pinball fun. I mean, there's also Alien Crush on the TurboGrafx 16, but Devil's Crush has way more areas on the board. It's got a lot of like the secrets and like secret boards and stuff like that. Lots of bonuses that you can rack up. Yeah, if you ever want to waste like 2 hours of your time. Just boot up some Devil's Crush, hold down that A button, and just watch it go.
It's a good game.
It's great.
Good.
Oh, and the soundtrack is good, too. Soundtrack is good.
Yes, it is very good. Vim, what would be a random recommend game that you have for the folks?
Well, I'd have to recommend Final Fantasy III for the Super Nintendo. It's a classic RPG back when Final Fantasy games were actually RPGs. And even better, you can play it with a friend and have 2-player battles and introduce somebody new to the RPG genre.
It's a good pick. Soundtrack's amazing. There's a bazillion characters. The story is crazy. Dude, I remember playing that for the first time, and when like shit hits the fan in that game, and you're like, well, hang on. What do you mean the bad guy's winning? What's all this now? And like, I'll never forget playing that as a teenager, and the part where, I mean, spoiler alert for a game that's this old, but there's a part where Kefka goes and like poisons a town, and it was just like,
oh yeah,
man, what do you mean? This is so dark. There's so many parts of that game that were like incredibly dark for its time, like, and just the feeling of dread, because like halfway through that game is like, so we lost, is what you're saying. We did not win.
Yeah, and it has a more evolved plot than just 18-year-old hero in small town must go on journey to save world. It has an actual ensemble cast with no one hero, and that was kind of a new concept at the time. It kind of set the mold for many games to follow.
A lot of them didn't, man.
A lot of them didn't.
It's one of the few RPGs, I guess, except it's one of the few RPGs on the SNES that like makes you feel something. Other RPGs are just like, bad guy, oh, hero goes to fight him, hero wins, that's it. But no, not Final Fantasy VI. It goes through a whole spectrum, a whole range, like a cornucopia of different, I guess, like different turmoils or situations
and emotions.
Yeah.
Dude, you ever leave Shadow behind? I don't think I could forgive myself.
First time I played, I didn't even realize that you could really leave him behind, because why would a game let you do that? Of course he's going to live.
Right?
I didn't even think to stop and wait for him.
Poor Shadow. Yeah, and you know what? Name another game where you suplex a train.
That's true, you don't.
You don't get that in any other, unless it's like literally copying that game. But my random recommended game is Sin and Punishment Star Successor for the Wii. So I played Sin and Punishment for the N64, I think like 2 Christmases ago. I just like threw it on randomly, and I was like, this game is crazy. Like, it's kind of like Star Fox-ish, but like a bit more batshit insane. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on, and just like really intense. Again, this
way
is a
more
game,
belts too. A lot of belts.
a lot of belts, even though Nomura had nothing to do with this. But it's made by Treasure, and I've always said for a very long time, Treasure don't miss. I don't know if I've ever played a Treasure game that I did not like. Even their friggin' McDonald's game is good. That has no right
that too.
That has no right being good, but it is. But this game that I'm talking about, Star Successor for the Wii, this was the sequel to the one on N64. And I only played this for the first time like a few weeks ago. And let me tell you, this thing blew my mind. It was nonstop action, just super, super incredible presentation. Music is great. Action is like really good. And like, I don't know, there's something about the like playing it on Wii with like the Wiimote, and it like, I mean, it is like a rail shooter to an extent, but like you're controlling a character, and like you're kind of like flying around in the air and like blasting stuff, kind of like what was that old Sega game? Is it Space Harrier? Is that the one I'm thinking of? It was like an arcade game.
Yeah.
Is that
you
the
can
one?
fly all around the screen and shoot.
You're, like,
you look
running
at the hero from behind.
Yeah. So think
Space
that, but
Harrier.
like way more advanced. And yeah, this thing just blew my mind. If you're listening to this and you're big into Star Fox, this has to be a game you play. You have to play this game because it is insane. And I need to go back and finish it, because I only beat, I think, the first or second level. But yeah, it's wild. I mean, there's crazy boss fight. Look, I'm a huge boss fight guy, and this game has no shortage of bosses. There's like you open up a door and it's like, oh, a boss. There's like like the smallest little milestones, like, oh, I guess I'm fighting a boss the size of a skyscraper now. Cool. Like it's unreal. Again,
That's cool.
Treasure don't miss. Treasure don't miss.
They don't.
No. Well, listen, Vim, we'll get you out of here. I'm sure you got a busy life. You got to maintain this epic site that's been going on since 1997. I just want to thank you so much for coming on and doing this. Like, you know, they always say don't meet your heroes. Well, buddy, let me tell you, you and that website are heroes to me. I am super glad that I got to meet you today.
Well, thanks, and thank you for visiting. I'm glad you enjoy it.
Absolutely. I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue going there and taking those ROMs. So if you want, plug and promote anything at all that you want.
Well, there's not really much to promote, really, but Vimms Lair depends on word of mouth, the spread. So if you like Vimms Lair, just spread the word and help the site. It's all appreciated.
Awesome. Yep. Here at Retro Rehab, we 100% endorse Vimms Lair. We recommend everybody go check it out. Even if, you know what? Even if you're not even in the market to download a ROM, just go check it out. Just go browse, peruse the ROMs, and just look at some game manuals.
Play your favorites on the site.
You just play them right there.
You play Tetris right there.
You play Bebe's Kids on the spot today. That should be the selling point of Vimms Lair. You could play Bebe's Kids right now, wherever you are.
Yeah, find out what everybody's talking about.
Well, thank you so much, Vim, for coming on and doing this. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks. I enjoyed it.
Good stuff. In the meantime, you can get us on all your social media. We are on Instagram at Retro Rehab Pod. We're on Twitter at Retro Rehab Podcast. We are on YouTube at Retro Rehab. And yeah, you can get us on all of your podcasting platforms. Please, review the show. Let us know what you think. Tell us stuff you want to see coming up. On Spotify, we have those polls that let you kind of speak out and say like, "Hey, I'd like you to review Bebe's Kids on the next episode." And damn it, we will
be hit with a rake than review Bebe's Kids.
But until next time, thank you for listening, and we'll see y'all again.